1? No, it's not 1.
It's 5!
All right, let's look at standard number 4 now. So this one is, I can find the probability of independent compound events using a list, table, and tree. So you can actually see on this section, we're going to give you a table, and then, oh, I have the other page here. That's 5D process. And then a tree diagram. So I'm not going to ask you to list things out without doing one of the other ones on the test. But either way, you can always create the list from the table or from the tree. So the probability here of getting tails on a fair coin and then rolling a prime number on a 12-sided die. So I'm going to go ahead and do my table over here. I'm going to show my coin on the top of my table. I tend to make my table a full box. You don't have to do it that way. My 2 outcomes are heads and tails, so I'm going to put those up here. I'm going to split the box in half. Now my 12-sided die has 12 outcomes, so I'm going to split this 12 times. So I'm going to go 1, 2, there you go. Should be 12 sides, and let's go ahead and put all the outcomes that we could possibly have here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So those are all my outcomes for the 12-sided die. And again, so my total number of outcomes here in this situation is 24, because there's 24 boxes here. And we can see each one of these boxes represents both a flip of the coin and a number on the number cube. So this box here would be a heads and a 1. This would be a heads and a 2, heads and a 3, and so on. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill this all in here. And these here would be all the tails. So tails and a 1, tails and a 2, tails and 3. And there we go. So again, what we were looking for is the probability of, oh, that's funny. I forgot to change it. I messed this up. So this one says heads over here on my paper. I will adjust that before I put these out for you. That should say tails. Obviously, it originally said heads. Okay, so the probability of tails and prime, we're going to look in this column here, tails. We're only going to look for prime numbers. So we already said before, we're going to skip 1 because that's not prime. So tails and 2 is prime, 3 is prime, 5 is prime, 7, and 11. And I think I got all my prime numbers there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outcomes out of 24 total. So the probability of tails and prime would be 5 out of 24. And just a reminder, so that the total outcomes are these boxes, all the different combinations you can get of coin and heads or tails. Oh, I'm sorry, coin and 12-sided die. All right, let's move on to the next one now. So, oops. For B, this one we're asking you to do a tree diagram, which tree diagrams are better when you have more than 2 events that are happening. So in that last problem, we had 2 events. We had flipping the coin and then rolling the die. In this one, we're going to have more than that. So it says, Mrs. Shaw is painting a mural on the side of her house. For her mural, she must first choose between either a landscape or a portrait for the style. So that's the first event. 2 choices. Then she has to decide on either color or black and white. I hope that's not confusing. I meant it as color or black and white is one idea, right? So the mural is either in color or it's in black and white. Again, 2 choices. Finally, she has to decide on either realism, impressionism, or abstract for the style. Those are different kinds of art. I suggest you look them up. I'm particularly fond of, there's actually abstract impressionism is another kind of art. It's kind of cool. All right, I'm getting off topic. So we have 2 choices, then another 2 choices, and then 3 choices. Some of you might know, starting right now, that the number of outcomes is going to be 2 times 2 times 3. I know we talked about that in class a little bit. Some of you picked that up. So we know there's going to be 12 outcomes total, but let's see it in the tree. We still have to make our tree. So we start over here. I like to start in the middle of my space. I like to give myself plenty of space. And my first split is going to be the first choice that Mrs. Shaw has to make. So she picks between a landscape or a portrait. So those are the two things I'm going to write up here. So I'm going to write landscape or portrait. I'm just going to abbreviate here. You guys can abbreviate too. I try to pick things where the letters aren't the same, but if you have to, put more than one letter. One of the misconceptions I saw a lot on this was students thought that the first split would represent the 3 different choices. But you're actually showing the 2 choices that you're making in the first decision. So landscape or portrait. The next decision you have to make is color, or black and white, which I'll do BW. And that we also have to make that decision even if we picked, or if Ms. Shaw picked a portrait. So we do it off of both of these. So like right now, right here, this represents a landscape in black and white, whereas this C right here would represent a portrait in color. Our final decision was realism, impressionism, or abstract. So we're going to draw 3 branches off of each of these 4. And every time, we're going to have realism, impressionism, abstract. Realism, impressionism, abstract. Realism, impressionism, abstract. Sorry, I'm starting to feel crazy hearing myself say that. All right, there we go. So, where are our total number of outcomes? Well, they're right here. This is a final outcome. This is a final outcome. These are our 12 outcomes right here. Again, so like this I right here, this represents a portrait in color done in an impressionism style. This A down here would be a portrait in black and white done in an abstract style. This R would be a landscape done in color in a realistic style. It's kind of fun to think about the different pictures. Okay, so we have this. I've kind of lost my train of thought. What are we trying to do? Oh, here we go. If Mrs. Shaw randomly selects one of each, what is the probability she will paint a landscape in black and white with an abstract style? So we need to find that up here. Landscape, black and white, abstract style. This is the outcome that we're talking about. It happens 1 time on this tree out of 12. So the probability here for this would be, well, I guess I'm going to switch to red, 1 out of 12. Again, the misconception or the mistake that students make on this is they think they're supposed to count all the letters for all the possible outcomes, but this L over here doesn't represent anything by itself. It's only a stepping stone to a final outcome. All right, I think we're on to 5 now. Let's do this. All right, final standard. I can create and solve an equation for a multi-step real-life mathematical problem. Right now we're doing this in a 5D process manner, so you're going to need to use the 5D process here. Well, at least I want you to be able to use the 5D process to create an equation. You might not have to do it on the test, but it's a good way to develop the equation. So a triangle has a short side, which is half the length of the longest side. The medium side is 4 inches shorter than the longest side. The perimeter is 46 inches. What are the dimensions of the triangle? So in my describe draw section, I'm just going to draw a triangle. And I don't know what kind of triangle it is. So I'm just going to draw just a regular triangle. It doesn't need to be drawn to scale or anything because I'm going to label the sides. So actually, I didn't really make any of the sides look shorter though here. So maybe I should draw this a little more so it's a little more clear. I'll make it so that we'll make it a right triangle, even though it might not be one. But this will make it more obvious now that this is the short side, this is the long side, and this is the medium side. So the short side is half the length of the long side. So to show this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just, actually, you know what we'll use? No, I'm going to use X. I'm just going to call this X. And then if this is X, the long side, and the short side is half the length of the long side, then this would be X divided by 2. That's how we find half of something. And then if I go over here to this side, I have a medium side, which is 4 inches shorter than the long side. So the long side was X. 4 inches shorter would be subtracting 4. Okay. So Now we're going to go ahead. Oh, we also need to label that the total perimeter is 46 inches. So now I'm going to do my 5D process here. So I'm going to do my long side first. And the reason I'm doing that is because the long side is the one that kind of tells me what the other two are. So we'll do long side, medium side. I try to do kind of like fake cursive looking writing to match the L. And then the short side, which I'll just do an S. I can't really do it cursive S very well. Okay, so remember, the first trial, I'm just making up a number. So I'm just going to try a number for X. I'm going to try 10. If the length is 10, then to find the medium side, I have to subtract 4. So I'm going to show that work. So 10 minus 4, which equals 6. And please show that work, because it's really going to help you out later when we write the variable. So 10, 6. Now the short side is half of the long side, so that would be 10 divided by 2, and that'd be 5. Now the do is where I check if the perimeter is actually 46. So in this case, the perimeter of a triangle is just those three sides, so I'm literally just going to add them up. I noticed on one of the rectangles we did earlier, a lot of you forgot that the perimeter on a rectangle involves the width twice and then the length twice. But in this case, it's just each of the sides once. So 10 plus 6 plus 5, that's going to equal 21. And we're going to decide that's definitely too low. And remember, I like to say low or high so that I know if my next number needs to be higher or lower. So I actually need a pretty significant jump here because we need to account for 25 more as we go up. So I'm going to take a little bit bigger of a jump. Let's go ahead and let's try 20. So if the length is 20, then the medium side would be 20 minus 4, so that would be 16. And then the short side would be half of 20, so it would be 10. And again, I'm going to add them all up. 20 plus 16 is 36, plus 10 is 46. That's just right. I'll be honest, I forgot what the actual answer was to this problem until right now. So I got it right. So 20, 16 is 36. Yeah, okay, 46. We got it. We found it. So now we found our answer. We're going to be able to declare the sides. But the other thing we need to do is we need to be able to represent each of these as a variable. I got you started up here with this. If we call the length x, then we determine the other sides based on that variable. So again, if the length is x, then now the medium side is x minus 4 because it's whatever x is, it's 4 less. And the short side is half of x, so whatever x is, it's going to be x divided by 2. I'll come down here and also, why not do this? The perimeter too. So the perimeter is a variable. We're just adding up all the sides. So this would be x plus x minus 4 plus x over 2. That would be an expression for that. And we can actually combine like terms, and we can work on that in a minute when I get down to the bottom. But I'm going to declare here. So the longest side is 20 inches. The medium side, that always sounds funny to me, but I don't know, that's what I always say, is 16 inches. And the short side is 10 inches. Okay? Cool. So now down here we're asking for algebraic expressions to represent each of the sides and the perimeter of the shape. We have that all up here. So the short side, we said that was x over 2. The medium side was x minus 4. And the long side was x. Now the perimeter, we said we can write it like that. X plus x minus 4 plus x over 2, which is totally fine. That's an expression. If you want to combine like terms, we know that an x and an x makes 2x. And then we have another half an x. So this gets a little funny. So if you have 2 of something and then another half, then we have 2 and a half x. But we don't usually write 2 and a half x. We would usually change this number to an improper fraction. So 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So we would actually write that as 5 over, I'm sorry, that's not right. 5 over 2, pardon me. 5 over 2, the denominator doesn't change. 5 over 2x, that would be 2.5, because 2 goes into 5 2.5 times. So that's how I'm going to represent x plus x over 2. So I'm going to rewrite this as 5 over 2x minus 4. This is okay, but this is just simplified now. So there's your practice test video. I hope you guys do great studying. As always, ask me any questions you have, or your teacher, or even if you don't have me, you can still ask me questions. We're always around to help. So good luck.